Oh my gosh, I think this is our biggest summit. We did 4 summits across Ohio last year. And then Cincinnati, I think, takes the cake. This must be 500 people. Thank you so much for joining us today. My talks are not very structured. Someone on my team was just like, oh, how did you prepare? Like, did you like write down your remarks? And like, honestly, I literally created these slides or put them together last night about 10 p.m. And the reason I do that is not because I'm a procrastinator. I am a procrastinator, but it's also because we've been talking about AI a lot. And what I notice is that very often when people are doing conversations, are leading PD, talking about artificial intelligence, you're sort of getting this snapshot from 6 months ago, a year ago, and this technology is moving so fast. My role here is being very focused. There's like a bunch of really deeply experienced educators, and they understand pedagogy, and like they're going to help us like lead amazing sessions where you're actually going to learn some stuff. I'm here to kind of just like set the stage for why you really should be leaning in, or at least make the case for it. It's really up to you to decide. So yeah, if for those who don't know the AI Education Project or aiEDU, we were founded in 2019, so we were very early, probably the first organization really to be advocating for this work. And specifically, we are not an AI tool company. We don't have any tools or technology, which I have a lot of FOMO because there's like amazing companies like Brisk here that are like totally blowing it out of the water. And sometimes I'm like, I wish maybe we had a tool. We don't have a tool. We're not the AI implementation project. Our work is really on AI readiness. So if you think about this world that is going to be transformed by tools, like schools are going to be potentially, transformed by tools. We're really thinking about what does it look like, not just to transform schools and teaching and learning with AI, but what does it mean if every other aspect of our economy and society is transformed by AI, and how do schools need to evolve to meet that challenge? And our belief is really it's not just about technology solving the problem that technology is going to create. This is really about investing in human capital, investing in educators and teachers and systems. And so that's the work we do. It's all about this. We're doing work at the systems level, and that's all I'm going to say about aiEDU. Please reach out if you want to learn more. We partner all over the country, but Ohio is our flagship. We're deepest in Ohio. We've been in Ohio the longest. Our first pilot was in Firestone High School in Akron Public Schools, where my mom taught. A little bit of bias and nepotism there, but So we've been on this road for some time. It's like worth just sort of like stepping back. Like AI it came out of nowhere at the end of 2022, but we've sort of been on this journey, really back to like the Turing computer in like the 20s. And so there's some key moments, right? Like stepping stones or goalposts along the way, checkpoints. The personal computer, that was a big deal. Suddenly everybody has computers. We didn't realize it, but these were all leading us to where we are right now. The internet, really big deal. Then we had cloud computing, the ability to actually access supercomputers remotely without having to build them on premises. And then this weird thing, and that's kind of where this story really gets like hot, is we figured out that the computers that we built to play video games on, GPUs, graphical processing units, they're actually really good for building AI models. And so you combine this like all these like gaming GPUs with this development in 2017. It's called the transformer architecture. This is about as nerdy as it'll get. The transformer architecture is really what underpins all the AI that you'll probably be talking about and using today. These are ChatGPT, these are large language models. And in short, they're just really good at like predicting stuff and like next word text prediction. That's how these tools work. But anyways, we didn't realize it, but we've kind of been on this journey for a long time. So yes, it did come out of nowhere, but it also didn't. And it's really important that when we are thinking about what this all means, imagine you're at like the late 90s. What was important is not like, how do I build a website? Like, yes, you can build a website, and a lot of people did build websites. Those websites were out of date pretty quickly. The big idea back in the 90s, if you could teleport back, would be this is about to change the way we do business. This is about to change the way we work, the way we interact, the way we consume media. And so I'm trying to take the lens of like, where's the puck going? It's like Wayne Gretzky is like, you skate to where the puck is going, not to where the puck is. ChatGPT, prompt engineering, that's where the puck is, and that's important, and it's worth it's a great place to begin the learning journey, but the why is here, is this question. So the decision you have to make for yourselves, this is like the most important thing you can really decide, is AI another, technology fad? Like we've heard about the metaverse and blockchain and crypto and NFTs and VR and all that stuff, and it kind of just fizzled, and some of it's still around, and there's cases to be made about they're very important technologies, but they didn't transform the world. Who's used a VR headset like in the last 24 hours? Yeah. Okay. So you could be on that side of the room. So maybe AI, and it's like legitimate. Like it is completely understandable if you're skeptical, and you're hearing about all this AI stuff, and you've used it, and you're like, it's not actually that good, and it really isn't that good in my view. I don't use ChatGPT that often, although I will tell you about one thing I have been using. Or it's like a technology paradigm shift. It's a once in a generation moment, something that you're gonna 30 years from now at the Thanksgiving dinner table be like telling your grandkids about. Like I was at this summit in Cincinnati, and we were talking about AI before, back when it was just ChatGPT. Like who could have imagined, right? And so, the case I'm going to make is that we're on the right side of that. And if you decide that we are at this technology paradigm shift, you have to be thinking about what the next 10 years looks like, because it kind of doesn't matter what tools we have today, because again, that's like a school saying we need to figure out online learning using like Netscape. That's a step on the journey, but the key thing is like, where are we headed? And then how does education need to, like, what is the role of education in helping us deal with that? So yeah, I think the title of my talk is Light of Distant Stars. So I'm going to show you a bunch of demos. The reason I use this analogy, I'm a little bit of a cosmology nerd, in part because AI has helped me learn more about the universe. But the James Webb Space Telescope has been sending us all these images. And what's cool about the James Webb is it's able to look so far into the universe that we're seeing like light from millions of years ago. It's like literally the light from the past. And so when we see demos and we see stuff that AI can do, when you use ChatGPT, you're not using literally like the latest and greatest tools. Like it takes 1 to 2 years to like build the chip clusters and train the models and like run it through like red teaming and then to figure out how to publish it. So there's stuff that's coming that's going to be orders of magnitude more powerful than what we're able to actually use and interact with today. So just keep that in mind, that like what you have, what you see, even if it doesn't work perfectly, even if it has lots of limitations, you're looking at the light of distant stars. Okay, so I have 7 developments, and this is like, again, why I had to do this last night, because I was like literally going through and trying to pull stuff that most of this is weeks, not months old. Okay, so the first is reasoning models. Who's heard of reasoning models? Yeah, okay, so reasoning models are a big deal. We basically had like GPT 3.5, GPT-4, this is just from OpenAI. Very big deal. But, like limited. I personally was not happy with a lot of the outputs that I got from ChatGPT. And also like a lot of people were teaching prompt engineering. Like how do you use ChatGPT? You say, I'm like, take the persona of a teacher and help me think about how to write a lesson plan, for example. Reasoning models are different because they actually do the step-by-step process automatically. So all you do to prompt engineer is you just say, here's what I want to do, here's my goal, and it will actually walk you through, and you can see you can watch it sort of walking itself through the process step by step, and it'll ask you follow-up questions to like clarify. And so these came out like the end of last year, beginning of this year, so they're very fresh. And if you're not paying for the pro versions of tools, you might not even have access to them. And if you haven't used a reasoning model, you aren't really seeing what's like the thing. Like these are the thing. So there's a bunch of them that are out. Most of the AI companies have their own reasoning models. And I was hoping to like print this out. I didn't have time, but here's just an example of some stuff that I've been able to do with a reasoning model. It's called deep research. If you have your laptop open, you can go to OpenAI and see if you have the deep research option. Okay, so one example, I gave it a list of the school districts that were here, and I said, create a map of all the school districts and grade them in terms of like their level of AI literacy, like the progress of their AI initiatives. So it did the research. It pulled like board documents, press releases, anything on their website, created a grid, sourced everything, It took about 20 minutes to conduct that research. I've also had to do like candidate profiling. So I just like said, here's a job description, go through LinkedIn, and it pulled like 100 candidates, and they were good. Like these were not made up, hallucinated candidates. These are real people. And so there's a lot of like use cases that are very different from like write me an email or write me a lesson plan. This is like go and do this like really mundane but important research. So reasoning models, really cool, but then you start to blend them into language models and specific applications and use cases. And so we have coding applications. So Cloud Code, this is a little bit old. This is like a month and a half, I think. So I didn't blurt out the profanity there, but so the people that have been using it are literally like, holy shit. And the reason they're freaking out is because you probably have heard that AI is really good for coding, and it is. But with the latest crop of AI copilots, what people are able to do is write a single prompt, like literally one prompt, press enter, and get a working code, working video game, working application, working website. This is like a interactive 3D graphics castle builder where you can like set the different sizes. And so you can imagine if you're a video game developer, this is going to be a big deal for you. This is my favorite. So this is one prompt, an interactive periodic table where as you hover over the different elements, it will actually animate the atomic structure of the element. And so if you're a chemistry teacher and you were just thinking like, it'd be really cool to have something that's interactive that my kids could use, well, you just need to think it and dream it, and you actually can have it right in front of you, again, without really having to write any code yourself. So Grok is interesting. I'm not going to talk too much about Grok. It was the most powerful model as of like, I think 4 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. It's been surmounted by Gemini 2.5, which I'll show you in a moment. But Grok's important for one reason, which is unlike OpenAI and Google and Anthropic, which have been working on language models for years, Grok just started a year ago. And what did they do? If you want to go and build a really big language model or the most powerful language model, as it turns out, all you need to do is just spend a lot of money. You spend like a few $1 billion, you build the biggest GPU cluster in the world in Tennessee, not too far from here, and you get the most powerful model as of circa this moment in time. So the reason this is important is because, again, as we think about like what's coming, we know that there's billions, probably trillions of dollars that are going to be flowing into capital investment into AI. And what we're seeing, and this is not necessarily a rule, but the hypothesis is that if you scale the amount of compute, if you scale the amount of resources that we throw at these models, they become more powerful. And what Grok demonstrates is, at least right now, that continues to be the case. And so it means that as companies continue to invest more money in AI, we probably are going to see increasingly powerful AI. It's not a given that AI is just going to continue to get better and better every single year, but we're not hitting that plateau yet. Who's heard of DeepSeek? This is from China. This is funny because it's like, in the AI circles, everybody's like, oh my God, DeepSeek is crazy. Like, what's it? Like, all the coverage, wall-to-wall coverage, NVIDIA stock dropped, I think, like 10%, which is like quaint, of course, now. But at the time, it was a really big deal. And the reason it was such a big deal is because DeepSeek is a company in China that's never built an AI model, a language model before, and they just released this thing out of nowhere. And it was like the most powerful, again, at the time, the most powerful reasoning model that existed. And the thing that really blew people's minds is not just that China was able to build a really powerful AI model, despite all the export controls and all that stuff, but they did it for a fraction of the cost. And it's kind of complicated how they did it. I literally cannot explain this to you. Something called mixture of experts, where you basically have like sort of smaller versions of language models that are really good at specific things, and then you sort of tap them. So if you're doing like data analysis or like writing or like deep science, you sort of like pull those. But the point is, it's a lot cheaper. And one of the big question marks with AI is not just how powerful can it get, but also, is it going to be affordable? Because we can have the most powerful AI in the world. If schools can't use it, if companies can't afford it, then it's just a cool thing that we see in research labs. What we see with DeepSeek is it is actually, there are pathways to reducing the cost. And so now we're starting to see like the most obvious barriers. Like if you're on the other side of that decision, if you're like, no, AI is a fad, the argument would go something like, it's always gonna be too expensive. It's never gonna be practical for us to actually implement at scale. Or it's gonna start topping out. We're gonna start throwing resources at it, and at some point, it's gonna plateau. And so far, those two those two sort of like con cases are not holding, at least so far. And then you have what is now the most powerful model, Gemini 2.5 Pro. Again, this is like, this gets released and then suddenly we have the best model. And I think this was during the ASU GSV summit, like the week before Gemini 2.5 Pro came out. So you already saw some of the single prompt, it's called one-shot coding. But Gemini is like really like materially better. So again, DeepSeek, Grok, these are like the two best reasoning coding models that are out there. And someone basically had a prompt that was like basically a program that allowed you to create sort of a different size Rubik's cubes and then have the program solve the Rubik's cube. DeepSeek and Grok basically couldn't figure it out, and Gemini figures it out. And not only can you do it with an 8x8, but you can do it with a whatever that is, like 10 by 10, and you can go bigger, and it will solve it. And so obviously this is just an example, but the point is it's capable of increasingly sophisticated work, increasingly sophisticated knowledge work, increasingly sophisticated coding. And so you get stuff like this. Again, these are video games like a flight simulator and like a snake game created with a single prompt. And the snake game was cool because they had all these like specific criteria that like when you run into an object, it should explode with like this sort of like animation. You should get extra points when you do X, Y, Z. And all the mechanics, all the game mechanics were accurate, were correct. And the flight simulator, I think, sort of speaks for itself. And that brings us to sort of like one of the big things, which is vibe coding. Who's heard of vibe coding? Okay, vibe coding it's very Gen Z. It's basically using AI to help you code. So imagine, if you're like working on a lesson plan and you have ChatGPT open in like a window on the right, it's like that for coding. So you're writing code, you have your terminal where you're writing lines of code, and then you have a little chat box, and you say something like, oh, I want to have a drop-down box and sort of like the onboarding menu with like these options, and when they click on this, this happens. And then you press enter, and then it sort of auto-completes the code for you. You sort of just press accept, and then boom, you have the code. So this has been around for a while, like years, but it started to get really good about a year ago. And this is what it looks like. This is a company called Cursor. There's a bunch of different companies. Replit, I think, is another one. GitHub has one. Microsoft has Copilot. A lot of companies have their own sort of proprietary vibe coding tools. But the reason this is such a big deal is obviously if you're thinking about a career in computer science, that's a whole separate TED Talk. But it's the first canary in the coal mine for high-skilled, high-expertise knowledge work being like dramatic, like where we're seeing dramatic productivity improvements thanks to AI. And so that was just like the thing that people were saying is like, wow, AI is going to be used and like it's going to like displace or like make coders like much more efficient or productive. And now we're actually starting to see what that really means. And so Y Combinator is like probably like the top technical accelerator for like if you're like an early founder, you apply to Y Combinator, and if you're like really good, and they optimize for people who have like deep technical background in computer science. And they did a survey of their cohort, and about a quarter of them said almost all of the code in their code base is entirely written by AI. And so it is now basically like in Silicon Valley, it is no longer sort of like conjecture. It is just an understood fact that the way to code now is to vibe code. The way to code is to use AI. And if you're not doing it, you're going to fall behind because your competitor is doing it. And that's not just Y Combinator. You have the CEOs of all the biggest AI companies basically saying like computer science jobs are probably not going to be the same. Some are even saying they're they're going to go away. I think that's a bit hyperbole, but it depends how far out you look. Are there any computer science teachers in the room, out of curiosity? What I will say about computer science is, if you look at the research from, or the survey from Y Combinator, yes, AI is being used to write a lot of code, but the other thing is the people that are best equipped to use those tools are people with a background in computer science. Or interestingly, not even just a background in computer science, a background in any kind of like deep technical expertise, like physics, math. So for those who say, oh, we don't need to teach computer science anymore because kids can just use AI, those people are wrong. Like, we still need to, in the same way that AI is really good at writing stuff, but we still need to teach students how to write, because like writing is thinking, and learning computer science is how you build computational thinking skills. What it does mean is this, when I was in school, it was like, if you just get into computer science, that is your pathway to economic mobility. You're going to get a 6-figure job. You're set. Like, that may not be the case anymore. Why isn't that the case? Well, we'll talk about that in a bit. But we've been talking about like knowledge work, and I guess the other thing I'll say about vibe coding is, again, vibe coding is the easiest way to apply AI, because software is a language, and so language models are really good at language, and so of course the low-hanging fruit is using a language model to like do something that's literally just being really good at language. But we're not too far off from vibe accounting, from vibe design, vibe marketing, not vibe teaching, but I really do believe, I don't think vibe teaching is going to be a thing in the same way. But there's a lot of knowledge work that is, in the crosshairs of this. And so it's not just about how our computer science pathway is changing. It's actually a lot of the expertise that our assumption was, if you just get that expertise, you're going to command value in the market. That might change. It might be other things on top of that expertise, what makes sort of humans unique, the durable skills that complement your ability to use those tools. Robotics, I'll just go quickly. This is like, the other side of this, so like the hard stuff, like, driving, transportation, working in warehouses. And there are a lot of advancements as well, in part because we're putting language models and blending them with robotics and advances in dexterity mobility. This is a company called Figure One. This is a video of them in like a mail sorting room. And some of the robotics you've seen are kind of clumsy. A company called Unitree actually figured out if you shrink them to like 4 feet, then you can actually get them to be quite dexterous and nimble. Okay, so what does this mean for jobs? It's probably not good. It's probably not good. It also doesn't necessarily mean that jobs are all going away. So that's sort of like the mistake that people sometimes assume, is that, oh, AI is going to destroy jobs. It may not be the case. There might actually be more people doing computer science, but you're not necessarily going to pay them as much. So if you think about like why an air traffic controller versus like a crosswalk coordinator, this is David Autor's analogy. So both societally important. We don't want kids to get run over in the crosswalk. We really value that. The difference is that it requires a lot more expertise that's much harder to get to be an air traffic controller. As the expertise for something becomes more accessible, the value that the market will place on it decreases as well. So first thing is, most knowledge work is basically highly exposed. So all the jobs that like I was told I should think about, doctor, lawyer, business, they're basically 100% exposed. Like, you look at, this is research from OpenAI and University of Pennsylvania, basically found that like a lot of those vocations are almost entirely exposed, assuming language models continue to get better. And then this is just the total picture of the US employment from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. In teal are all the jobs that in some way are implicated, right? So there's going to be disruption, not necessarily displacement, but changes to those jobs, changes in what students are going to need. What is the most elastic job market? Where can we actually see this? Because it takes time. The reason, if you look around, the economy looks pretty good. There's not tons of people out of work. These technologies are getting pretty powerful. And the answer is that just like organizations take time to change stuff. Like, you have like infrastructure and hierarchy and data privacy, and legal has to approve. It's slow to implement transformation. Like, digital transformation takes time. The freelance job market is obviously faster, because you can just decide I don't need to hire a copywriter because I can use ChatGPT. And what we're seeing in the freelance market is a 20% decrease in tasks that AI is really good at. So like this is happening. It's just happening under our feet without us really realizing it. And then the big question is, well, when is this really going to hit the fan? And the answer is, if you look at the past 50 years, we've had other types of automation and offshoring, just this jobs displacement. And when researchers looked at the last 50 years, what they found is that it wasn't gradual. It actually happens in these like acute bursts of automation and displacement. And when does it happen? Following a recession. So when you have a recession, then you have all of this automation that happens. And we haven't had a recession in like 16 years. We may literally be entering one right now. So the reason this is important is because this is not a 5 to 10 year conversation. This is like a 2 to 3 year time frame before this becomes like, pants on fire, like the thing. And implementing AI tools in your classroom is not the solution. AI is not going to solve the problem that it created. It might help us a little bit. But in the same way that if you had 2 classrooms in your school and the only thing you know about those classrooms is 2 English classrooms, one classroom where the kids spend all day on their computers, the other classroom, the kids are not on their computers at all, you probably still don't know enough to know which is the more effective English teacher, right? So the technology by itself is not enough. At aiEDU, what we believe is the solution is AI readiness. AI readiness is, it's AI literacy, but it's also durable skills. It's how do you bring the human advantage on top of the ability to use tools effectively. And what it also means is kids still need to be proficient in English. They need to be literate. They need to be proficient in math. They need to know science. They need to know civics and social studies. And so AI readiness actually means doing all the stuff that we've been doing. Like if you look at your teaching and learning plan for your districts, that is actually the core of AI readiness. It's not which tool do we implement. In the same way that you go back to the early 2000s and imagine how silly it would be if schools spent all the time trying to figure out, well, we need to teach students how to use their phones because you're going to need to know, you couldn't do your job without a phone, which is true. But the idea that that's the purpose of school, that's the big thing that school should be focused on is obviously wrong because AI, like cell phones, is probably going to become so ubiquitous and so seamless that it's not going to necessarily matter as much. You're differentiating value add to the job, to whatever job you're being hired to do, is not that you're good at using AI. Everybody's going to be good at using AI. It's going to be, what else do you know? Do you know the math that you need to be able to vet the tool and like be the person that second guesses it? And so what does that mean? It's like you have to like deliver, like we have to actually show what this looks like. So that's what we do. We have curricula that's aligned to AI literacy, that builds AI literacy skills into core subjects. So the good news is you can kind of have your cake and eat it too. So you align it to existing standards in HQIM. You use AI as sort of like the sexy, fun thing, and it gets students engaged, and it's current. But then also stuff like this, PD. Teacher capacity is, and system capacity is the one thing. I really don't know what tool you should be investing in. I don't know if anybody should be buying a tool at scale just yet, because they're moving so fast. Do you really want to spend all this time implementing Netscape and then Google comes out? But what we do know unequivocally is the schools that have more teacher capacity, that understand AI and the context of AI and how to connect their existing priorities as an English or a math or a science or a computer science or a social studies teacher to this trajectory of the future, those schools are going to be the best equipped to deploy tools effectively and safely. And then last but not least, as you look around this room, the real solution is there is no organization that's going to save the day. aiEDU, unfortunately, cannot solve AI readiness for Ohio or for Southwest Ohio. You are going to solve it. And so our role, the way we think about our role in this work, is precisely why we partner with amazing organizations like OESCA and MCESC and the innumerable organizations that are represented here and across our work. Is like, you need to be leading this work for your communities. Like, you are literally the solution. And so that's why you have to take, if you believe that we're on this generational like technology cusp, which I think we are. But then there is nobody else that's going to come and save the day for you. It's all on you. And so that's hopefully my call to action. And if you connect with me on LinkedIn or just like reach out to me, I'd love to share more about aiEDU. And what I will probably do is connect you to folks like Candace or Craig or others who are literally on the ground and can take this big picture stuff and really bring it down to what can I do next week? What can I do next month? How do I bring my teachers in? Where do I start? How do I move the ball forward? And I think today's going to be a great opportunity for us to kick all that work off. So.